A closer look at Chapter 49 of Jin Ping Mei, the world of beasts with wine, sex, and wealth. Things in the world are unpredictable, and blessings and misfortunes depend on each other. Speaking of which, last time, Simon King was imprisoned for taking bribes and perverting the law in the Mao King case. This time, due to the dealings and protection of Zai Jin and Kai Jing, Simon King not only escaped the disaster, but also got two other great things. One is the 30,000 grain granary notes that were paid in the old days. The Ministry of Household Affairs sent out 30,000 salt notes to fulfill the contract, which will bring great wealth to Simon King. Another good thing closely related to this is that the Lianghua Patrol Salt ordered Kai Zhuangyuan. The same Kai Zhuangyuan who once came to Simon Mansion to fight an autumn wind that was fuller than Granny Feng's wind pocket. Originally, Simon King's corruption and perversion of the law in the Mao King case had sufficient physical and personal evidence, and it was only natural that he be punished. But in that dark era when all power was available, Simon King was fine, but a good official who enforced the law impartially suffered. Zheng Shun not only failed to bring down the evildoers Simon King and Jia Tixing, but he was used by Kai Jing to depose Ling Bao because he opposed Kai Jing's memorial. In other words, the 7 major articles of Kai Jing's memorial, such as the law of changing salt banknotes, reforming money, and making money, are all ways of making money by killing the goose that takes the eggs. They want to plunder the talents of all the people in the world just for the boring enjoyment of the king. The foolish Taojin and emperor accepted everything as written. It is not surprising that the once prosperous Song dynasty fell under the iron heel of the Jin people soon after. Although the reasons for the collapse of the dynasty were complicated and varied, and his own cannot be entirely blamed, it is not an exaggeration to say that he was the last and strongest straw that broke the camel's back. Kai Jing, Tong Wan and others are the ones who add grass to the camels. In this room, after Simon King got these 2 pieces of good news, he started to make preparations intensively, while sending Han Daoguo to Gaoyang Wanhubu to register and receive the salt. He also prepared a large banquet and waited for Kai Yushi's arrival. Han Daoguo has now become Simon King's right-hand man. Simon King will always think of him when he has good errands, especially long-distance errands. Once he is on a business trip, it will be easier for Simon King to fool around with Wang Liuer. In fact, even if he was not sent on a business trip, Han Niangui would not even say no in front of him. Kai Yushi finally arrived. Last time, Kai Yun, the fake #1 scholar, visited Simon Mansion for the first time. Simon King was entrusted by Butler Zai to treat him warmly, provide escorts, and give gold and silver to the penniless #1 scholar. This time, Yoshi Kai was very proud to visit Simon Mansion again as the censor of salt inspection. Simon King's reception this time was more thoughtful and extravagant than the last time. Not only did he go 50 miles out of the suburbs with Jia Tixing to greet him, but he also invited a theater troupe in King County to play, lest others not know about it. A Jiaoshan colorful shed was set up at the front of the door, and musicians from the 2 courtyards played music called high-end opera and acrobatics. Sure enough, as he expected, Kai Yushi's arrival not only alarmed the people in the city, but also the entire government. At that time, there was a commotion in Dongping Mansion and a big fuss in King County. They all said a high-ranking official from Ximen, who was also recognized by the inspector, came to his house to have a drink. Zhou Xiaobai, Jingdu supervisor, and Zhang Tuanlian were panicked, and each led the sentrymen and horses are guarding the left and right streets to wait. Simon King, wearing green clothes and a crown, greeted him from afar. In fact, various government offices had already welcomed the 2 censors Kai and Song. At that time, the magistrate who in Dongping, as well as the subordinate prefectures and counties, had military and health officials, and monks, all of whom were waiting to welcome him. Zhou Xiaobai, Jingdu supervisor, and Zhang Tuanlian of the Marshal Mansion all led their men and horses to follow them. They preached on clear feet, and all the chickens and dogs disappeared. He advocated and welcomed Song Shunjian into the Procuratorate of Dongping Prefecture. Officials from all over the place met, submitted documents, and rested for the night. But they didn't know at the time that the two censors would attend a banquet at Simon King's house. So after hearing the news, they hurried to Simon King's house. I think Simon King did this on purpose. Having such a strong relationship with the Salt Patrol censor, Simon King's face was bright. In the past, few people knew about his relationship with Butler Zai and Kai Jing. After all, it was not very honorable. But now, Kai Jing's godson, the Nuno, one scholar and salt inspector, has become Simon King's guest. There is no need for a fig leaf. He can openly tell everyone that he has someone in the court. If local officials know this relationship, can they not look down upon him in the future? Who else would dare to casually participate in his music in the future? This time, Kai Zhuangyuan came with a song censor who was in charge of prisons. Simon King asked Kai Yeshi to bring the song Yeshi with him. And Kai Yeshi did indeed bring the song Yeshi with him. This song Yeshi was also a disciple of Kai Jing and was also familiar with Sai Jin, so it was not good. But maybe it was his first visit and he was a little unfamiliar. Maybe he didn't want to have any friendship with someone like Simon King. Or maybe he was still a bit unruly when he first entered the workplace and didn't want to be short-tongued and short-handed. So he just sat there for a while. After sitting down for a while, I had to leave before the official start of the meal. But it's not that easy to leave. Even if you leave, you can't leave cleanly. Simon King couldn't keep people around. So he immediately packed the 2 banquet tables into 10 boxes. Wherever Song Yeshi went, the food boxes were carried. Simon Qingzhao ordered his men to put the 2 table seats and gold and silverware in food boxes, totaling 20 loads, and called for servants to serve them. A large banquet from the Song Yeshi, 2 jars of wine, 2 rams, 2 envelopes of gold silk flowers, 2 horses of Duanhong, a pair of gold plates, 2 silver pots, 10 silver wine cups, and a silver folding bowls, a pair of tooth chopsticks. Simon King is indeed a master at delivering gifts to his level. After seeing off Song Yeshi, Kai Yeshi felt more at ease now. Simon King sent someone to quietly invite Dong Jiar and Han Jin Shuaner. Judging from Kai Yen's performance last time, Simon King knew what he wanted most. To prostitutes would satisfy him more than giving him more money. High-end disciples are mentioned several times in this chapter during the Jiajing period of the Ming Dynasty. The development of Nank has surpassed that of Northern opera, which has been dominant since the Yuan Dynasty. Among them, high-end tune, Yang tune and other Nank tunes stand out among the many singing tunes. It was probably during this period that Wei Liangfu of Kunshan absorbed the vocal characteristics of high-end and Yuan tunes and created a new type of opera, Kunquopera. From then until the middle of the Qing Dynasty, Kun opera was the most important type of Chinese opera. But the high-end children not only sang songs, but also performed juggling for fun and passed drinks. Operators have always been regarded as the bottom of society and are not respected. This is not a problem with the opera itself, but rather that they not only have to sing, but also eat, drink and sleep with them at the request of their masters. If you refuse, the play may not be sung. Forced by life, they had no choice but to sell themselves. But the people who bought them looked down on them. Why? This meal cost Simon King more than 1,000 taels of gold and silver, which is staggering. In Dream of Red Mansions, a crab feast in Bao Chai Xiang Yun cost 20 taels of silver. Grandma Liu was already smacking her lips, saying that it was enough for their family to last for a year. Simon King's meal was enough for Grandma Liu's family to live a good life. After the meal was eaten, the wine was drunk, the gifts were given, and the prostitutes came. Simon King could finally get down to business. Simon King said, "Last year, I left my relatives to collect some grain and grass from the side and send some salt. I was sent to Yangzhou, Guizi, to distribute salt. I hope that the people who beg will be happy, and it will be a sign of kindness to distribute it earlier." Because he handed over the unveiling note, Kai Yeshi read it. It reads, "Businessmen come to Bao and Shui Ben to get 30,000 kin of Hui salt from the old school. Beggars will be collected as soon as possible." Kai Yeshi, who had been treated so favorably, naturally agreed wholeheartedly. He has power, and he wants to exercise his power. Kai Yeshi looked at it and said with a smile, "What's the matter?" He called the security guard to kneel down in front of him and ordered, "Kowtow to you, Mr. Kai." Kaiyoshi said, I will go to Yangzhou, and you will come to inspect the court on the way. See me. I leave a month earlier than other businessmen, Simon King said. Old sir, I'll leave 10 days earlier. Some experts have calculated that if Kaiyoshi released the 30,000 taels of salt from Simon King for 10 days early, he could make a profit of nearly 100,000 taels of silver. If it had been released a month earlier, the profit would probably have doubled. This treat cost Simon King 1,000 taels, but as soon as he turned around, he earned 100,000 and 200,000 taels. It was really a good deal with huge profits. When Simon King entertained Kai Yun for the first time, he did not expect to get any benefits from him in the future, but it had to be said that he was indeed lucky. The benefits gained from this unexpected move were actually more profitable than any other business he did. And Kaiyushi's name is Kai Yun, which is a homophonic pronunciation of wealth. He himself is wealth luck, and it also brings greater wealth luck to Simon King. After the guests of honor had enjoyed themselves, Simon King personally sent Kaiyoshi out of the city the next day and served him wine at Yangfu Temple. At this time, Simon King already knew the identity of Song Yoshi, so before Kaiyoshi left, Simon King asked Kaiyoshi to talk about Mao King's affairs, and asked Kaiyoshi to talk to Song Yoshi. And Kaiyoshi agreed. The Song Yoshi, who had received such a favor from Simon King, did not express any objection whether he was willing or unwilling. The Mao King murder case, which had irrefutable evidence, was left unsolved. The steel knife placed on Simon King's neck slipped gently. If the censor of the Song dynasty could stick to his principles and not bend the law for personal gain, we would naturally admire him. But he seemed to be able to understand the favor he did in doing so. Under the circumstances at that time, if he was really an official who was loyal to his duties and dared to speak out, he might not have been able to survive in the officialdom. Don't forget, the former Yoshi Zhang was exiled to Lingbiao because of this, and his life and death are uncertain. At this time in Simon King, misfortunes have vanished. Happy events are coming one after another, official fortune is prosperous, and wealth is rolling in. It can be said that life is full of joy. Therefore, in Yangfu Temple, he met the monk who made him happy. Every time I mention monk who, I think of Jumozi in the 8 parts of the dragon. I didn't like Jumozi at first, but compared with the strange monk in the Golden Lotus, Jumozi seems a bit cute. After all, the most he wants is to learn martial arts. This monk who seems to be waiting for Simon King here specially, although he ignored him at first. He didn't answer when he called, and he didn't say anything when he called again. But when Simon King asked him if he had any medicine and if he could go to his house, monk who readily agreed. Did he see Simon King's sincerity? Simon King said, "Since you give medicine to help people, I ask you for some nourishing medicine. Do you have it?" Monk who said, I do. He also said, "I will invite you home now. Are you going?" Monk who said, I'll go. Simon King said, "If you say go, that's all." Monk who arrived at Simon King's house, and we used his eyes to see the furnishings in the home of the upstart Simon official. After having tea, Monk who opened his eyes and saw that the hall was high and far away, with the deep character UN. On the door was a turtleback pattern shrimp beard woven green bead curtain, and the ground was covered with a lion rolling hydrangea plush thread blanket. In the middle is a table with dragonfly legs, a mantis belly, and soap-colored ripples. On the table is a Zumizuo marble screen with a tapestry ring. All around are loach heads and Nanmu targets with swollen muscles leaning against each other. The paintings hanging on the 2 walls are all purple bamboo poles with silk edges and agate axes. Exactly. The painted drums made of leather are used to vibrate the courtyard, and the ebony spring platforms are used to hold wine. Take a look at Simon King's living room. The curtains are hung with turtlebacks and shrimp whiskers. The pavement is made of lions rolling hydrangeas, and the tables and chairs are made of dragonfly legs, mantis bellies, and loach heads. It is simply a chaotic world of animals. This clearly shows Simon King's animal nature, and also illustrates Simon King's nouveau rich aesthetics. No amount of money can turn his home into a hall of fame. After having tea, it is natural to drink and eat. Because the next day was Li Zhao's birthday, The dishes prepared at home were more abundant than usual. Li Jiar, among all the wives and concubines of Simon King, is a very special existence. It stands to reason that a prostitute who was redeemed by her client as a second wife must be extremely beautiful and talented. But Li Jiar didn't take advantage of any of it, and Simon King didn't have much preference for her after they passed by. So Simon, why did King buy her back in the first place? After Simon King's death, Zhang Erguan bought Li Jiar for 200 taels of silver at the persuasion of Count Ying, and continued to serve as his second wife. Perhaps it was during that era that buying a prostitute to be a mistress was a symbol of status and wealth. This monk was not only blessed with good taste, but also had an astonishing appetite. Look at how much he ate: 4 plates of fruits, 4 plates of side dishes, 1 plate of fish, 1 plate of duck, 1 plate of black-skinned chicken, 1 plate of sea bass, and 1 plate of walnuts fried with scallops and green onions. Meat: a plate of finely chopped meat, a plate of fat lamb intestines, a plate of smooth loge, and a rice soup to meatballs in a bowl. Sandwiching a rolled pork with sausages, also known as yulong shi'er's soup, a large plate of cracked meat buns, a plate of thick horse intestines, a plate of pickled goose necks, a plate of skinny grapes, and a plate of liquid hard red plums, a big bowl of eel noodles, and vegetable rolls. Immediately, monk who was stunned by the food and said, "This poor monk is drunk and well-fed. That's enough. Even if he had a camel's stomach, he couldn't hold so much. Once it is installed, can it be like a camel, which does not need to eat grass for several months?" Alas, not only are the furnishings at Simon King's house full of animals, but the food they eat is also full of naked animality. I wonder what will happen to Li Jiar's birthday the next day after monk who has eaten so much. And such a bestial meal is a fitting birthday banquet for a former prostitute. Monk who was drunk and full, so Simon King immediately stated his request. Monk who has a short mouth, so he happily took out the tonic medicine for internal and external use. Simon King was not satisfied yet and wanted a prescription. Naturally, monk who would not give it to him. You can just teach them to fish, but you don't have to teach them how to fish. As one of the most important chapters in the middle part of the book, the content contained in these 49 chapters plays a very important role in guiding the subsequent direction of the book. Simon King's death and Li Ping'er's death were all foreshadowed here, and Hu Sengyao was the cause of the disaster. But Simon King, who was confused by wine, sex and wealth, could not feel at all that the monk whose medicine he was deeply obsessed with a strong smell of death, opened the door to the palace of hell for him. Li Ping'er, the only person he truly devoted his feelings to, would die early because of this, and he himself would not survive the day he needed the medicine. A closer look at chapter 50 of Jin Ping Mei, that night intoxicated by the spring breeze. It is said that in the 49th chapter, Simon King was proud of the spring breeze, and the last bit of Mao King's case was wiped out with thoughtful flattery. And the 30,000 Huayan salt was already in the bag. The power and wealth were already at its peak, but in the blink of an eye, he met the elusive monk who gave him the tonic eternal protection prescription. And he was eager to try it and open up a new realm of life. Simon King has reached his peak, and King Long's regrets come unexpectedly. Sinologist Mr. Pu Andy once pointed out that the Ming Dynasty chapter-style novels The Plum and the Golden Lotus, Journey to the West and The Romance of the Three Kingdoms all reach the midpoint in chapter 49, which is the turning point of the plot and the fate of the characters in the novel. Prosperity breeds decline, and life begins to go downhill from then on. Therefore, in chapter 50, Simon King's infinite spring has been quietly obscured by his personal attendant Anne. This handsome, clever little man, who usually goes in and out of town, finally stepped into the center of the stage. Diane was in a bad mood. First, my legs were sore and my whole body was covered with sweat after walking with Ruoyo Shenhu. However, Wang Jing sent by Wang Liuer to invite Simon King was spotted by Wu Yunyang. Later, Diane was questioned and accused by Wu Yunyang because of Simon King's unknown whereabouts, and she accumulated infinite anger. With the cat-kicking effect, Diane's anger was directed towards the weaker ones. He vented his anger on the book boy by humiliating him, At first glance, this evil fire seems inexplicable. The book boy was Simon King's favorite child. In the past, Ping would get a good beating from Simon King just by whispering. Unfortunately, things are not what they used to be. Simon King, who has had enough of freshness and excitement, has already developed new interests. As a confidant, Diane had already smelled the scent, and the disdain and anger in his heart turned into a mockery. What a whore, I didn't look for you there, you were hiding here eating wine. The visitor was unkind, and the book boy was not polite. Why are you looking for me? You want to be my grandson for a while? Diane was provocative and held the book boy down and kissed him. After being pushed away, he raised his legs and pressed the book boy down. On the king, I tried my best to spit into his mouth. After the repeated blows, the scholar's momentum weakened. I just played around and laughed, and I spit out the stinging water. This venting of sex and violence was stopped by Pinganer. After all, Diane had to go to Wang Liuer's house to pick up Simon King. Wang Liuer was naturally polite to Dan. Although he didn't personally make shoes for Dan like Pan Jinlian and Li Pinger did, he was still considerate in everything. Think about how Dan knew that Pinganer was beaten because the book boy complained. But he kept saying, "Thank you for agreeing to the master. You don't know the master's character yet." How can you blame others? Dan's current self-discipline is evident. At that time, Simon King and Wang Liuer were having a fierce battle, and the piano boy outside the window could hear entering the harbor. Diane said, "Why don't you listen to him? Let's come over before he gets up." Instead of looking at the plum blossoms to quench thirst, it's better to get up and walk. Dan took Kintong to the low-class brothel in Butterfly Lane. This is naturally not as good as the brothel where Sister Li Gui and Wu Yino live, and the customers they receive are only craftsmen such as Chu Taegong. What does it matter? Diane can act like Simon King. He can get hit with a punch, open his mouth, and take it to the Yemen to try out a new stick. The turtle man in the brothel has to laugh with him again and again. On that night, intoxicated by the spring breeze, it was not Dan who was fascinated, but Simon King. He couldn't wait to try the medicine with Wang Liuer and return home. Without stopping, hoping to share the wonderful taste with his beloved, they didn't care about Li Zhao's birthday or Pan Jinlian's questioning about the vagina bag. After getting drunk, you will know better. That night, Simon King stubbornly thought about Pinger and wanted to have a deep love with her. I am in you, and you are in me. That night, Pan Jinlian gritted her teeth secretly and closed the door to sleep. This parasite woman has tasted the taste of manipulating human life and appreciates the sweetness of killing. Many years later, when they stood before the judgment table of fate, did they look back at this night countless times? Have you ever tried to cross the river of time and try to save the deeply loved and hateful person? Only time is silent. There is a season for everything, a time for everything under the heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck out what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to throw stones, a time to heap stones, a time to embrace, and a time not to embrace, a time to search and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to abandon, a time to tear and mend, a time to be silent, and a time to speak, a time to love and hate, a time for evil, a time for war, and a time for peace. Even so, we are still busy in the sun, just like they were intoxicated by the spring breeze on that night. A closer look at chapter 51 of Jin Ping Mei. The more indulgent and sensual you are, the harder it is to satisfy your desires. She came from water margin and was not an important role, but under Lan Ling's Zhao Xiaoxing's generous writing, she transformed into the well-deserved female lead in the Plum and the Golden Ping. Yes, she is Pan Jinlian. In the first episode of Jin Ping Mei, Pan Jinlian appeared in heavy makeup. In chapter 51, at the beginning of the second half of the book, Pan Jinlian still appears to start the show. How long had passed? Pan Jinlian was no longer on his mind. In chapter 49, when Simon King got Hu Monk medicine, the first person he thought of was Wang Liuer, and the second person was Li Pinger. Anyway, I didn't expect Pan Liuer. Before Ximon King arrived at Pan Liuer's place, he went to Pan Jinlian's room and took away his vagina bag. This bag is always placed in Pan Jinlian's room, which shows that this is the most lustful place in the house. At this time, Pan Jinlian didn't know that Ximon King had a new love, Wang Liuer. He thought that Ximon King had taken away the vagina bag and spent the night at Li Ping'er's place. He was so angry that he stayed up all night and held a grudge. Ever since Li Ping'er entered the Ximon mansion and became Ximon King's sixth wife, Pan Jinlian had never given her a good look and had plotted against her openly and secretly. Li Ping'er is fair-skinned and beautiful, rich in money and good-tempered. All her masters and slaves like her. Pan Jinlian doesn't care about these. But she took away too much of Ximon King's rain and dew, leaving her alone in the empty room, which she couldn't bear. In this regard, Pan Jinlian is very clever. She knew that Li Zhao's birthday was celebrated the day before. When Ximon King returned home, he did not celebrate Li Zhao's birthday at the back. Instead, he went directly into Li Ping'er's room. Later, Li Ping'er persuaded him to come over. Although he came, he didn't follow the rules of staying in the house of his wife and concubines on their birthdays that night. After drinking, he went back to Li Ping'er's room. Wu Yunyang must have been somewhat dissatisfied with Li Ping'er. At this time, Pan Jinlian went to use her specialty of sowing discord, which would definitely get twice the result with half the effort. You want to take care of it again. You came into my house drunk, and I was not in front of you. You just humiliated me in front of others and looked at me. I was annoyed. You walked to the front and drove his father away. Come back. How can Yu Nang not be annoyed after hearing this? Because he said to Da Quizi and Meng Yulu, you were all watching yesterday, and I didn't say anything to him. When the young man came in with a lantern, I just asked, why didn't your father come in? The young man fell down, he said. He went to Liu Niang's house. I then said, you two Niangs are waiting here, but they don't come in because there is no way out. It doesn't hurt him to talk about it. Why do you say that I am a godly mother-in-law? Kiao sitting in the Yamen. I still regard him as a good person. It turns out that he knows people well, but not their hearts. How can he look at people? He is just a thorn in his skin and a thorn in his flesh. He doesn't know what he is saying in front of a man behind his back. It's his fault. Yesterday I decided to move forward. Silly sister, even if the man stays in your house all day long. You don't want me to be moved by this. She had to go back and make amends. But because she really hates Ping'er, her seeking for compensation is not like asking for compensation, but more like a last hit. Jin Liang was so flustered that she said, sister, please forgive him. As the saying goes, an adult does not blame a villain for his faults. That villain is not guilty. He is instigating the man behind his back. Who among us has not said anything about him? I am close to him. It's impossible to get to know him through the wall. He only relied on his child to surrender. And he said good things. He said that his child will grow up tomorrow. And he will repay kindness and revenge. We are all about to starve to death, you don't know it yet. These words really went too far and involved the children. Even Wu Deguzi, who was doing it next to her, couldn't bear to listen. Wu Dejinzi asked, my grandma, where did you say this? Yunyang said nothing. She was Ximon King's only daughter, but she never received much love from Ximon King. Her mother died before she got married. Although stepmother Wu Yunyang is not a wicked person, her stingy attitude towards money shows that she will not be very generous to her eldest sister otherwise. The eldest sister would not be always without sewing shoes. This shows that she would never be so generous to Sister Ximon. A married daughter returns to her parents' home to avoid disaster. But what is Li Ping'er's attitude? Li Ping'er refused to listen. After hearing this, he couldn't pick up the needle in his hand. His arms were weak. He couldn't speak for a long time. He shed tears and said to the eldest sister, Miss, where did I say a word last night? I was in the back and heard the boy say that his father was coming towards me. So I came to the front and urged him to go to the back. Who else said a word? Your mother-in-law, are you looking down on me? I am so ignorant that I dared to say this. If it were me, you two would be right in front of each other, Pinger said. I can't be right with his talk. It just depends on God. The only people he plots day and night are my mother and my daughter. It will be clear that he will plot one of them tomorrow. After saying this, he cried. In fact, at this time, her position in Simon King's heart far surpassed that of Pan Jinlian. If she had some scheming, she might not be able to defeat Pan Jinlian. And Pan Jinlian carries a gold character. Gold defeats wood. Therefore, Li Pinger always kept a low tone towards Pan Jinlian. Not only was she restrained by her, but her son eventually died at the hands of Jin Lian. Simon King, who didn't know what was going on, finally came to Jin Lian's room with his monk whose medicine and other utensils. Pan Jinlian made no secret of her hunger and thirst. The two naturally spend another unforgettable night. During this process, the snow lion raised by Pan Jinlian was eyeing Simon King's lifeline. Pan Jinlian beat it away, leaving Simon King unscathed. But Simon King would never have thought that this cat would kill his real lifeblood, Brother Guan. Next time. At this time, Simon King and Pan Jinlian were still indulged in the ravine of unsatisfied desire. If you have wine today, you will be drunk today, no matter whether you live or die tomorrow. Which kind of person is Sister Li Gui? It's a bit chaotic. She is from the family, the goddaughter, but also from outside the family. She is the top prostitute in King County, and the target that other top prostitutes want to catch up with. She also leads the fashion in King County. Simon King exploited Pan Jinlian's chrysanthemums and rewarded her with new clothes. What Pan Jinlian wanted was the jade-colored threaded sheepskin picked gold oil, goose yellow and silver-striped gauze skirt worn by Sister Li Gui. He had succeeded, but it was obvious that he had not won Sister Li Gui's heart. Unlike Pan Jinlian, Li Pinger, Meng Yulu and others, they all had sincere moments when they overcame all difficulties and obstacles to marry him. Even the dead Song Huilian had thought of remarrying Simon King. Alas, Song Huilian has been dead for a long time, and Pan Jinlian has forgotten her. But in the author's case, she is magically looming. Because in chapter 52, Simon King and Sister Li Gui renewed their relationship in Zhangchunwu. This Zhangchunwu is the snow cave where Simon King and Song Huilian had an affair, a snow cave like hell of ice. Only this time the story happened in late April. Summer has just arrived, neither hot nor cold. This is again the author's ingenuity. The icy hellishness is exactly Song Huilian's fate soon. And the lukewarmness is exactly the relationship between Simon King and Sister Li Gui. Do you like it or not? It must be worth it. It took 50 tales of makeup to do it. He stayed in the Li family building for several months, and neither his wife nor the affectionate, hot and sexy Pan Jinlian could come back. It seems right to say that I don't like it, because he could calmly watch Earl Ying bullying and teasing him. He would not help him. But he was still secretly praising Earl Ying for being so awesome. Last time, Sister Li Gui came to Simon King's house in embarrassment to ask for protection. Wu Yunyang wanted to show her usefulness and just said good things. As for Simon King, now that he has Wang Lior, who gives him enough stimulation, Li Pinger who gives him the warmth of his family, and Pan Jinlian who gives him a spiritual shock, he doesn't seem to pay attention to Sister Li Gui anymore. But after all, he was the one who created Sister Li Gui, and she was recognized by Wu Yunyang as her goddaughter. Bullying her means not taking the people of the Simon family seriously, so she must help her. But accounts also have to be settled. Earl Ying was the roundworm in Simon King's belly. He guessed that Simon King was no longer interested in Sister Li Gui, so he didn't put in a good word for Li, but just came to report the news in advance. Everything depends on Simon King's eyes. The Yushi of the Song dynasty, who had been indifferent before, brought delicious food. The courtesy was light and meaningful, and Simon King was very happy. He invited Earl Ying and Si Shi to share. This meal tested Earl Ying's skills because Simon King asked about 2 of the 10 brothers, Sun Dezui and Chu Mazi. These two sworn brothers were taken to Kyoto for helping Wang Sangwan seduce Sister Li Gui. Earl Ying replied, "What an easy fruit to eat. It seems that he is the one who suffers this kind of hardship. It's such a hot day on the road, and he's being carried on an iron rope. And there's no travel entanglement. So what's the big deal? Of course, we can't have brotherly feelings towards those two people, but we can't seem heartless or unscrupulous either." Earl Ying had two meanings behind his words. Simon King didn't buy it, saying that they had brought it on themselves. Who taught him to follow the Wang family's servants all day long and just bump into him? He will suffer the pain he seeks. If he goes on, Simon King is afraid that he will be regarded as the same as Lao Ju and the others. Man, therefore, Earl Ying hurriedly responded to the situation. Brother is right. Flies don't get through eggs without holes. So why don't they look for me in Zizichen? What's clear is just clear, and what's muddy is just muddy. This statement was too timely. Earl Ying still has to work hard for Li San and Huang Zixi, who came later, seemed to have discussed it with Earl Ying. As soon as he arrived, he told Simon King how he blocked Sun Zizui's mother and how he suffered from it. However, beneath the words, it was obvious that everyone was deceiving Mr. Wang. He had contributed, but he did not get a share of the guaranteed money. Simon King was still a little curious about what kind of prostitute he was who was willing to spend all his money for Sister Li Gui. But the hand behind that person can reach directly to King County to arrest people, which cannot be underestimated. But Simon King still couldn't help but said in front of the two brothers, "How brave is that young boy from the Wang family? He hasn't got enough brains yet to support his wife. It's not enough for what I have done every time. It's just a shame." Earl Ying sensed the direction of the wind from these words. When they ate later, Earl Ying ate very hard, only 3 chops, and 2 swallows were 1 bowl. The two of them drank 7 bowls at once. The word harsh is used very well. We have shown with our actions that we are committed to brother, and it will be the most satisfying to live in good company with him. Earl Ying praised the delicious noodles, brother. Which sister made the noodles today? It's delicious and refreshing. Earl Ying praised the fresh loquat. There are still people who live to old age and die without knowing what this is. Earl Ying praised the shad. It tastes delicious until you pick it out between your teeth. The imperial court hasn't eaten it yet. If it's not my place, who has it? Earl Ying handled it extremely well. After Sister Li Gui asked for protection, she took the initiative to sing songs to Wu Yunyang and others, took the initiative to hug Brother Guan, and diligently handed wine to everyone. After completing a set of procedures, she quickly felt good about herself. It's only thanks to me asking your father repeatedly that he agreed. Why would he be willing to say favors for you, whatever music you like? You sing and I drank, and it's because of hard work. Sister Gui laughed and scolded, "Weird Kiao Huazi? You are so shameless." "Dad, will you believe what you say?" Sister Gui had ridiculed him in the past, but now she still doesn't buy his fault. After a quarrel, she saw that Simon King didn't help her, so she slowly picked up the pipa, put it on her knees, opened her red lips, showed her white teeth, and sang a few songs. It's nothing more than love sickness, fear, concern, and a bleak future. Every time she sang a song, Earl Ying poked at her and Wang Sangwan coldly, "You two came here so easily, but now you are so scared for him. You shouldn't complain. Silly little slut. Son, why can't he sleep peacefully? I didn't take him away, silly little whore. With this schedule, a 3-year-old child can't coax her, let alone the young man in love. Are you serious with him? He just says no, but also sings and slaps Sister Li Gui. I'll tell you what's going on in the romance. Now, it's impossible to tell whether it's true or not. They are all weird elves, and they have been used to it for a long time. And they will bury their plans alive in a blind vat, dark top. The old godly woman only wants to make money, but the little whore has to pull her neck to get forward. The pain is like drowning in a river, and the sorrow is like finding a partner. When the karma jar has to be filled, she will turn into a donkey and a horse and will not do this business. Sister Gui started to cry after hearing this. She made her professional debut, and as soon as she debuted, she overpowered Panjin Lian, allowing the romantic Simon King to pay a large sum of money for a comb, live in Li's courtyard for a long time, and even used Pan Jinlian's hair to pad the soles of her shoes. She calmly faced Simon King's beatings, begged Wu Yunyang to be her godmother, taught Li Jiar and Jia Huier a lesson. Regardless of her beauty, charm, cruelty, and scheming, she can be said to be the most beautiful girl in King County. Simon King once asked all kinds of women to give everything, but only Sister Gui remained unmoved. Today, through Earl Ying's mouth, everyone knew that Sister Li Gui was sincere about this #1 deceiver of Feng Yu's children. This is the great thing about Zhao Xiaoxing. There are always surprises in life, and humans are not complete beasts. Even Simon King will be heartbroken by Li Pinger one day. Even Sister Li Gui will have true feelings for her one day. What kind of thrilling things happened between Sister Gui and Sangwan Wang? The old godly woman only wants to make money. This sentence took care of Wang Sangwan, who kept his wife in front of her and was entangled with Sister Li Gui all day long. That's when Wang Sangwan's wife asked her uncle Huang Taiwei for help. According to Earl Ying's description, this lady was extremely beautiful on only half of her face. However, she lost to Sister Li Gui, and she was unwilling to lose. So she staged a scandal that was enough to spread among the people for a whole year. You can't make a living even if you change from a donkey to a horse, Sister Li Gui cried. Life is not easy, even if you are born with a habit of laughing. You may be moved by someone, but when you wake up, you have to die, and you have to have a real confrontation with your fate, and you are immediately knocked back to your original shape. Wang Sangwan's wife is not Pan Jinlian, nor is she Wu Yunyang. Wang Sangwan is not as great as Simon King. The story between her and Wang Sangwan is often played out in brothels, and probably every prostitute will experience it once. In opera romance novels, most of them are lucky and have a good ending. But Lan Ling tells you coldly with a smile that there are almost no lucky ones. If even Sister Li Gui is not lucky, let alone others. Is her Aunt Li Jiar lucky? Nor, in the past, whenever Sister Gui changed her attitude, Simon King would calm her down for a long time. Now, Simon King was watching all this and just interrupted Earl Ying with laughter and scolding, and asked Sister Gui to continue singing. Sister Gui's tears are good material for creation and can win a lot of tears, but the people around her still do what they should do. No one, besides seeking life, has the strength to sympathize with others. Covering his face and leaving the stage, he fell down on his bed and cried for a long time. This is the right of another type of person to live. The moment Sister Gui was born, this possibility was lost. It took a long time for Sister Gui to gather her emotions and continue singing. The lyrics at the back are naturally, I am lovesick by mistake. It is impossible to dream of clouds and rain in Wushan. Enemies are so unlucky that they leave each other alone. The kindness in this world is turned into a cake. After singing, the two of them went to the backyard one after another. With Monku's magic medicine, Simon King was invincible and spent the whole day looking for wet hens and chrysanthemums under his tent. Starting from Wang Liuer, he forced Li Pinger Yu to fight Pan Jinlian for tonight's. Now that Sister Li Gui has come to his door, he despises the third official Wang, so he naturally wants to make his lower body comfortable. This is not only a good time to prove your power, but also a good time to possess a female. Making Sister Gui surrender at this time is as satisfying as burning incense on a woman. Simon King took Sister Gui into Zhongchun Wu and started another game to prove his sexual power. Simon King and Sister Gui disappeared one after another. If he was still fighting with Cixi honestly, he would not be Earl Ying. After wandering around and searching, I arrived at Zhongchun Wu, and sure enough I found something. Earl Ying peeped, shouted, broken, and teased Sister Gui. Since you consider me your goddaughter, I have the kindness to teach you to hide for 2 days. But you are stealing a man again. The previous Earl Ying made Sister Gui feel distressed and wanted to wake her up, as if he wanted to help her. But at this time, Earl Ying was ruthless. He was going to tear off Sister Gui's disguise, brand the words most shameless on Sister Gui's face and body, and then step on her a few times. He deliberately rubbed Sister Gui's oil, hugged her and kissed her. The kiss was full of interest. The vitriol here is shocking. They are all people who make a living in the mud. Sister Gui had just woken up from the trembling fear of saving her life, and had just shed tears over an illusory relationship. She was still enduring the absurdities and paradoxes of life, and was about to have a physical battle with her godfather. This war is a split between body and mind, a huge gap between reality and expectations. But that's not all. She also had to endure the teasing of another helper, or perhaps Sister Gui and Zhang Chunwu has not had time to fully understand what she is going through. Simon King is awake. After that, he and Sister Gui became estranged. The prostitutes in King County all smelled the cold smell. In order to attack Sister Gui, they took turns to play. Zhang Aiyu was naturally the most active. Wang Sanguin's mother, Mrs. Lin, was about to make a grand appearance. However, is Earl Ying cruel? Zhao Xiaoxing said nothing. His pen makes every character alive, no longer just a bad guy, a wicked person, or a ruthless person. Earl Ying was prosperous in the past. He has basically experienced everything Simon King has experienced. He used to be surrounded by other people like Sun Zizui and Chu Mazi, and he used to be surrounded by Da Fu, Sister Gui, and Wu Yin'er. Now, he is Simon King's helper. Simon King is called the eldest brother, but he is actually the boss. Earl Ying can clearly see all kinds of people. They're true, false, good and bad. They're easy and difficult. They're difficulties and joys. Earl Ying was sober but confused. He is confused, but at the same time he is clear that he will retaliate, no matter how Sister Gui treated him in the past. He just returned the favor. Smiling but silent. We don't know who he is. It's just the words in the novel, like the most luxuriant forest. With sunshine and green leaves together, wild beasts appear, ants make nests. Grasshoppers and mantises live and die, flowers wither and bloom. No one is stronger, and no one has the last laugh. After a rain, mushrooms came out. Chen Jingyi and Pan Jinlian pick mushrooms. However, according to expert research, chapters 53 to 57 were supplemented by bad scholars. The ending of chapter 50 may also be, mainly because there are many unreasonable things. In chapter 41, the author has already analyzed Li Ping'er and Wu Yunyang's extreme vigilance and precautions against Pan Jinlian. Even if they were traveling with Pan Jinlian, Li Ping'er and Wu Yunyang would not let Pan Jinlian touch Brother Guan for fear of making a mistake. After Li Ping'er and Wu Yin'er became sworn mother and daughter, Li Ping'er complained about Pan Jinlian's viciousness and said that if it weren't for Wu Yunyang's care and Simon King's favor, Guan Jie wouldn't be alive today. But this time, Li Ping'er actually asked Pan Jinlian to take care of Brother Guan, leaving her son behind to do small things that were not urgent at all. This is completely inconsistent with the narrative of the book. Chen Jingjing and Pan Jinlian openly wanted to do whatever they wanted to do, but it was also very sudden. Chen Jingjing stayed under someone else's roof and treated Sister Simon and Simon King carefully. Pan Jinlian seduced Meng Yulu's bookboy and was whipped by Simon King. People who are extremely controlled by others, even if they have feelings, they dare not bring them out. Before this time, Chen Jingjing only dared to talk nonsense and exchanged his shoes for Pan Jinlian's handkerchief. Pan Jinlian only dared to flirt a bit and secretly pinned her love to Chen Jingji. That is it. This time, late spring and early summer are perfect for playing. The backyard is lively. Simon King and his wives are there. Sister Gui and other guests are there. Nanny Ryer and Brother Guan are all there. Sister Simon is also in the garden. And Earl Ying is wandering around. Pan Jinlian and Chen Jingji don't dare to show off. What's more, Pan Jinlian has been fed extremely well by Simon King, who is full of sexual energy in the past 2 days. Then wait patiently for 58 times, then it suddenly dawned on me that the clouds were still all over the sky.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.